Hello, and welcome to How to Be Orange, the audiobook experience. I enjoyed writing the book, I certainly enjoyed reading it, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. Go to youtube.com/Greg Shapiro and subscribe to my channel, and then you can click on the playlist. Enjoy. How to Be Orange, an alternative Dutch assimilation course by Gregory Scott Shapiro, illustrated by Floor de Goede, with a foreword by Willem van Oranje. Hi, I'm Wilhelmus van Nassau, Willem van Oranje, or you may know me as William the Silent. But I cannot keep silent about this book. Yes, I was silent for a while about the atrocities of the Spanish Inquisition, but that was because I've always honored the King of Spain. How to Be Orange Lesson 1. Keep Spain happy. They will no doubt be the economic superpower for centuries to come. It's not easy being orange. Every time I say I'm proud to be from these united provinces, there's always someone reminding me I'm not really from here. They call me names, saying I'm actually from Nassau in Germany or Orange in France. Well, now that I'm in charge, I will make sure that we forever eliminate that word allochtoon. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this book, it's this. Long live the Republic! I gave everything I had to throw off the monarchy and to blaze a trail for a new system of government based on self-rule. May we always have the right to self-determination, such as the right to elect our own city mayors. And if anyone told me this country would someday become a monarchy, I'd pull off my own mustache in rage. Or at least, if we ever do have a monarchy, I hope that they'll at least have the good sense to avoid inbreeding and get some foreign blood into the mix. V van Nassau, Delft, 1584. This book is inspired by the stage show How to Be Orange, making the Dutch take their own assimilation exam. If you're looking for an official guide to Dutch culture, this is not it. If you're looking for one man's completely subjective and utterly biased impression of Dutch culture, then you've come to the right place. Some people have split personalities. I have split nationalities. It's what I call MND, multiple nationality disorder. I happen to live in Amsterdam, and a lot of this book takes place there, but MND can happen anywhere, from Maastricht to Den Haag to Enschede to Groningen. And if you've ever lived outside the country where you grew up, as many Dutch people have, then you could be living with MND. See if any of these MND symptoms sound familiar. I grew up in America with a dessert called Dutch apple pie. The recipe involved sticky, gray, apple-flavored goo with glucose and presented in a soggy crust. When I came to the Netherlands and ordered apple pie, I tasted real chunks of apple and a real butter crust. Enlightened, I took the recipe back to the U.S. Proudly, I presented it to my friends and family, and they were disappointed. This isn't the real Dutch apple pie, is it? I went back to my hometown, and I got culture shock. I'd been living abroad for over a year, and suddenly these people that I'd grown up with looked foreign. Had they all changed somehow since I'd been away? In particular, everyone's eyeglasses looked huge. Had America developed some new trend while I'd been gone? And then I realized nothing in America had changed at all. The only thing that had changed was my perception of what standard eyewear size should look like, based on the tiny little reading glasses that Dutch people call normal. When it comes to eyewear, Dutch people seem to think, it is such a tiny country, we wouldn't want to see too much of it at any one time. And finally, I went back to the States. I met some friends at a bar, and they started teasing me for dressing like a Eurofag. I said, what? Why? They said, yeah, you're wearing skinny jeans and the skinny jacket. You look like a gigolo. I said, these are clothes that I bought to actually fit my body. I looked at them, and they were all wearing Matching outfits, loose-fit shirts and loose-fit trousers combined with the active outerwear from Colombia or Patagonia or the North Face, because you never know when you might need to climb a mountain in Chicago. When you no longer feel completely at home anywhere, that's MND, and this book is for you. Prologue, Amsterdam, Day 1. The date was April 4th, 1994. The question was, would I be willing to give up my acting career in Manhattan to come do comedy in Amsterdam for the summer? Since I was living on tips and paying rent via credit card, the answer was an immediate yes. My idea of Amsterdam was the one shared by most Americans, I suppose. They had the golden age, Anne Frank, and then sex and drugs and downhill from there. To be honest, what I'd expected was one big red light district full of grand old buildings that had been left to crumble. I was in for a lovely surprise. I remember getting off the plane at Schiphol Airport and thinking there must have been a mistake. It was such a modern, sleek, well-designed airport that I thought, this can't be Amsterdam. It seemed more like a model for a modern American airport. And in fact, that's exactly what it was. Shortly afterward, the Dutch would be called upon to redesign part of JFK International Airport, including the now iconic black-on-yellow information signs. And I'm going to sound like a travel writer, but I was pleasantly surprised at Amsterdam's baggage carts. They were actually larger than their American counterparts, and they were free of charge. I had seriously misjudged the Netherlands. The signs were in English, the ads were for Heineken, and the first thing I saw out of customs was a Burger King. I thought I was in Pittsburgh. And the charm offensive continued. Instead of having to surrender my baggage cart, I was able to take it right down to the train platform. It was my first time on one of those walkway escalators, and the handbrake on my baggage cart actually worked. Within 1 hour, I'd already started to redefine my definition of second world country. That term was now reserved for JFK International. Gregory Shapiro, the American Netherlander, moved to the Netherlands in 1994. After 10 years, he completed the equivalent of a Dutch assimilation course and received a Dutch passport. By now, he can write in Dutch, but it still reads like a bad version of Google Translate. Shapiro married a Dutch woman and writes about Dutch culture at her insistence. Shapiro lives in Amsterdam with his wife and their 2 children and talks about himself in the third person. How to Be Orange, Chapter 1. Dutch Identity, Who Are We? The quote. Is there one Dutch identity? I haven't found it. Nederland is too diverse to sum up in any one cliché. Maxima Zorregieta, House of Orange. Maxima says Dutch identity doesn't exist. Quote, the Dutch media. What am I doing here? Not long after Maxima's infamous quote, I was invited to a seminar on Dutch culture entitled Dutch Identity, Who Are We? I was to take part in a panel discussion and share my experiences along with other internationals. I said yes, but I didn't know at the time what I was getting into. The seminar started with a panel of elder Dutchmen, experts on Dutch culture, captains of Dutch industry, and some members of the Dutch government. The majority of them agreed that Maxima was wrong. There is a Dutch identity. But they couldn't agree on what it was exactly. I remember thinking to myself, if you guys can't figure out the Dutch identity, who will? Perhaps it's no wonder that the panel couldn't agree. According to the seminar's first speaker, part of the Dutch identity is the need to disagree. Ever since they threw off Spanish Catholicism, the Dutch have celebrated their right to their own opinion, even if that means debating everything. And in my experience, this is pretty true. When I introduced my mother to my Dutch family for the first time and someone told her nice outfit, it was my Dutch father-in-law who said, "No, I don't think so." And we got to hear a lengthy monologue on everything wrong with American fashion. For a tolerant people, the Dutch can be very judgmental. The speaker at the seminar summed it up with an ironic twist. Historically, the Dutch are very independent-minded, but they're also very non-hierarchical. No one wants to be on top. Therefore, he said, Nederland is the least chauvinistic country in Europe. The speaker explained it like this. We Dutch are rather proud of our accomplishments, our culture, and our contributions to world society, but we are deathly allergic to taking any credit for it. In essence, if the Dutch do have a national identity, then they don't feel comfortable acknowledging it. Up next was the guest panel discussion. I was invited to sit on stage with a Chinese law student, a Turkish telecom entrepreneur, a Polish consultant, and a Dutchman who was the former head of international investment for Rabobank. What started off as a panel quickly turned into an impassioned monologue by Mr. Rabobank. He agreed that the Dutch are non-hierarchical by nature, and in his experience, that's why they are a nation of followers. We don't need a seminar on management, he said. We need a seminar on leadership. We have enough managers, just look at the Dutch cabinet. Who will have the courage to stand up and lead? It was then that one man in the audience had a question for Mr. Rabobank. He was from the Ministry of Economic Affairs, also known as the Dutch Cabinet, and he very much disagreed. It seemed the men knew each other, and what followed was a heated debate. Mr. Cabinet defended his record and the record of the government, the Dutch model, and the idea of Dutch leadership, and then the retort from Mr. Rabobank. So why haven't you done anything to lead us out of this crisis, or to unify us for the reforms you promised, or on immigration, to offer an alternative to just saying full is full? There was no answer. It was an awkward silence. The moderator then gave the mic to the other members of the panel, and then, Mr. Gregory Shapiro, what's your opinion? Gulp. At that point in the seminar, I must admit I had more questions than answers. How can the Dutch be so independent-minded yet so obsessed with consensus? How can the Dutch be so liberal and open but also so Calvinistic and conformist? How can the Dutch be so proud about their identity but then be so quiet about it? And more to the point, what on earth am I going to say to ease the obvious onstage tension about immigration? I took the mic and I said, I thought Maxima had been misquoted. I told the story of my own assimilation course. For me, it was inspiring to learn that so much of Dutch history was based on immigration. Indeed, some of the most famous Dutch names are imports. René Descartes, Baruch Spinoza, even William of Orange, who comes from German blood. And by the time the rest of the panel had spoken, a sort of consensus had become clear. While the elder Dutchman would still be debating whether Dutch culture was worthy or not, there are new Dutch people from all over the world who like what Nederland stands for. I realize there are many Dutch people who worry about too much immigration. Well, as an American, let me put it like this. If you don't want so many immigrants, then stop being so awesome.